Welcome to Immigrant. Welcome to a space where you can be vulnerable, a space where you're not going to be judged, a space where you can be authentic. And my hope and desire is to inspire and motivate everyone that click onto this podcast. So welcome to another episode of Immigrate. Welcome to another great episode of Immigrate. I'm so excited for this guest today. Her name is Maz Alexander, mental health wellness, transformational coach, social work, mother, a speaker, and an author based in South London. She supports busy professionals, caregivers, maintain healthy boundaries so that they can implement a self-care they need to live a balanced life, authentic and fulfilled life. Welcome, Maz. And one of the few questions that we've been talking about, what is your immigration journey? I know you said you were raised in the UK, right? So tell us what your immigration journey is.
Right. Okay, I'll tell you. Yeah, because that's not quite the thing. So, yes, I was born and partially raised in London. So, when I was a child, I was sent away to Jamaica and I was told that I was going on holiday. So, that was the first thing. It was quite traumatic for me when I found out I'm not going home. So I was separated from my family, my friends, and everything that was familiar. Although, yes, I'm of Jamaican heritage, it was quite a big culture shock. I was feeling vulnerable. I felt like an orphan because usually it's the reverse that happens. People in Jamaica send their children over to the UK for a better life, but I was sent over to Jamaica and I was left with strangers initially before staying with my grandmother. And it was a struggle financially and emotionally for me. I did come back to the UK 2 years later, but despite the negative experiences, my overall experience is it's made me certainly more resilient, more versatile, and I can generally adapt and mix with different types of people. And it's helped me to be passionate about traveling and exploring the world with new adventures. So yeah, that's my overall experience.
I think I want to tap into this, and probably because I'm being biased right now because I'm a Jamaican myself. But how do you think those trauma, like, was it what? 'Cause as you said, you're right. Usually, you heard you go the other way around, not going back to like third world country. But how was that experience? What age did you, if you want to share, what age did you go there?
Yes, so I was under the age of 10 anyway. I was probably
Okay.
about 7 or 8. I was very young, and there was no explanation given. So I think that added. Maybe if it was, I initially went to stay with family, but I was left with strangers. And I remember my mom used to pay these people to look after me. So yeah, that was because as well, Tasha, because my mother was a single mother, and I think she was struggling because she was a nurse. She worked nights, and she didn't have nobody to look after me. Sometimes I was left alone, and I think it was a bit concerning for the school and the authorities. So that's why she sent me away.
So do you think, okay, so 2 years you spent in Jamaica, and then when you moved back to the UK, do you think it resurfaced anything traumatic came back, or what was that experience like when you moved back?
Yes. So definitely there was all kinds of things, although I was a child, all kinds of things resurfaced. But yeah, it was mainly about the rejection, abandonment, feeling unwanted. Unfortunately, that while I was left there, 'cause, there was unfortunately some sexual and physical abuse that went on. And then when I moved back to England, I had to adjust again, which I struggled because obviously I had the accent, I had everything was different. And when I moved back to England a few years later, again, we moved to a part of England that was quite, living in London is a big city. So it was quite
Yeah,
another culture shock to live in a place where I was literally the only Black person. So
right.
that was another adjustment. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. But how do you think I know we talk a little bit, how do you process those emotions and experience? Did it take you years to process it? I moved here as an adult. I can only imagine you moved there when you were a child and then moved back into somewhere different completely. How was that emotion experience?
Yeah. Well, let me just add before, in terms of what the rejection looked like for me. when I was a child, because obviously you can't process everything, you don't always understand what is happening. But I remember feeling like I was such a burden, especially to the people that my mother left me with. It was an inconvenience. Like I said, my mom would send money and the food and all kind of thing. These people that I was staying with, they weren't the best. They wouldn't feed me sometimes. The money never got through. You know, even because this was in the 80s as well. I remember getting beaten at them times. You would get beaten at school. You know, even if you got your times tables
Right.
wrong. With the
Yeah.
big, you know, the big sugar cane. It was whack. Yeah, have a few scars from that, but that was part of the culture at the time. So I had to adjust to those, you know, different kind of cultural norms. Like I said, abandonment. I used to think, when will I be rescued? Somebody's gonna come and rescue me one day. And remember,
Mm.
bearing in mind, they told me it was a
Mhm.
holiday. So after the first year now, when I realized nobody's coming, you know, it was very difficult for me to adjust. Now, don't get me wrong, Tasha, there were some rich cultural experiences. Of course, I enjoyed eating our
Right.
food. Yes, rice and peas. Yes, eating the yam and all the good food that was abundantly available. And yes, bonding even with my grandmother, because those times my grandmother was probably about 90. And yeah, learning our cultural traditions. But the thing is, in terms of what you asked about, I didn't process the emotions and the whole experience for a long time. Because as I said, I was a child. I didn't know what was happening. I later realized, you know, I was feeling angry. I was isolated. And you have this disenfranchised grief. Now, over
Right.
the years, yeah, and it doesn't kind of leave you. And it's like almost like you've got to keep it a secret because you just have to get on with it. So
Yeah.
over the years, I've found even just things like, you know, coaching. I am a coach myself, and that's why I became a coach, because I recognize people have these experiences through therapy, self-talk,
Right.
prayer.
Mhm.
And just to add that my grandfather and my mother were part of the Windrush generation. You've heard of that. Oh, I don't know if they when I talk to people in the States, they're not usually familiar, but maybe in Canada you're familiar. So the Windrush
No, I'm
generation.
not familiar. Yeah. I know about the silent generation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, well, they were part of that as well. So they were invited, as you know, Jamaica, a former British colony, they were
Yeah.
invited to come and rebuild the country and develop the resources after the war, after the Second World War.
Right.
They were invited. They never just come like migrants, like other migrants. They were invited. So they were displaced people, and they had that
Mm.
stoic attitude that was
Yeah.
expected. They were expected to get on with it, but they were in survival mode most of their lives. And,
Right.
understanding that helped me to realize what it was like for them, although it wasn't like I said, it wasn't unusual, it's part of our culture, we still do it even today. A lot of people from Jamaica, we send our kids to England, we send them to America for, you know, better opportunities.
Right.
So, when I realized that was the norm, not that it did me any good, but I have found it more therapeutic to understand that that was the context at the time. And I have processed that also through expressive art. So I am also a stand up comedian. That's what I do. And when I talk about some of these traumas, you know, every Jamaican knows what it's like, for example, to be beaten and the fear and that's just we laugh at that now, but you know, at the time it wasn't funny. So
Yeah.
these certain things that are unique to our experiences, because you know, our parents don't ramp. We don't have. So when we talk about that, I make fun of it now. But yeah, people can relate to that kind of experience. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. True. I was raised by a silent generation myself, so I not necessarily got beaten by a cane, but of course the belt was in place, which is we don't want to condone. They call it abuse now, but yeah, we're not condoning that. But it was just a phase of life where we all as Jamaican have been through. So thank you for sharing that. So with your professional view, as you're saying, how does you think rejection impact immigrants? Why do you think it impact immigrants so deeply? So let
Yes, sorry. There, you know, Tasha, there's so many reasons and it's unique to the individual. But overall, because as I mentioned, I am an adult mental health social worker. So we know that I'm not saying migrants are over represented, but I'd say generally as Black people, we are overrepresented over here anyway in the psychiatric systems, criminal justice systems. And I think that the reasons for that are due to the structural environment and the health inequalities, all of that. But for the people that I see, even from my own experience, there are many reasons because I think number one, whenever you move to an environment and you can't be your authentic self, you can't be true, that's always going to be a problem for you. Because if you show up at the host country with all of you, all that it really means to be you, that is an invitation in itself to rejection. So I don't want to speak for you, Tasha, but you know how we code switch. You know how, okay, the Tasha in her place of employment or when you're around other Canadians is perhaps different to the Tasha that goes backyard, who, is her true self around family. We're used to doing that because we have to adapt. And it's the same over here. So that might be, yes, we're an English speaking country, but we might not speak patois freely. And for other immigrants, it might be a language barrier. So they learn to adapt, assimilate, and comply. It's just what they need to do to get along. In fact, that's what you're told to do if you want to have citizenship. And also the other thing, this is what I found, it's difficult, isn't it, being away from your loved ones if you have no or a limited support networks. You may be doing a job that you're overqualified for. Many people come here. There were doctors in their country, there were nurses, teachers, and they have to go and clean toilets to make ends meet. That is not only a dent in their confidence and their pride, it's very difficult. And not on top of that, the abuse you get. So if you're being compared to cockroaches or locusts and people saying that you are taking their jobs and their resources, you seen as a threat. You're being stigmatized and you face all kind of racial discrimination. Like I said, that erodes your identity and your overall
Right.
well-being.
I don't think I code switch. Do I? I don't know. I don't think so because I haven't been to Jamaica. So, quick story. This is not my story, but I think why we're sharing is I went to Jamaica this year and I haven't been back in it was like 9 years since I haven't gone back. So, I went back newly married, but the difference with that, I kind of was so much into this culture, I forget what that culture was like.
Mhm.
So going there, I felt like a total stranger. So I do understand that sometimes as immigrant, we can feel like I do feel more rejected in my country than I feel here,
Mm.
which is, you know what I mean? I don't know. But yeah, in terms of code switching, yeah, I don't do it as much because I'm so comfortable with what I do now. Maybe when I go there, I might get ridiculed. I might get people calling me, "Oh, you're acting like you're better than," because I'm so used to. Like most of the time, people say you don't sound like Jamaican or you don't look like Jamaican or whatever, right? That in itself, it's a whole dynamics that sometimes is very uncomfortable to deal with. But thank you for sharing. Um,
I
yeah,
just
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying because and it's different for each of us. Yeah, I've been over here most of my life in England. Before the pandemic, I was going back and forth. I used to go sometimes twice a year. I also forgot to add, I did go back to try and live there as an adult, but I didn't last more than a few months, Tasha. I had to come back. I was like, no, I'm not about this life because I assumed rather ignorantly with my British privilege that I could just go and settle down, get a job, yeah, even in a supermarket, but that wasn't the case. My savings ran out, had to go back. I have a daughter. My daughter's father is Jamaican. Different. Um, in relation, that's what I say. I'm very versatile. So wherever I go in the world, I travel. I usually can mix and blend. But I guess what I'm referring to is when we're on the phone, even how you talk to your husband. You talk to your husband a certain way, or your close friends who know you. Work, obviously, it's a government job or what have you. I'm representing the healthcare state and everything. So I present slightly differently because
Right.
just because the untold messages are you can't be too much. If
Yeah.
you can't be so, and I think this is I don't know about the African Americans and things, but just the Black experience wherever we are located
Mm-hmm.
geographically, we do tend to, so, but yeah, I get what you mean because when I go back to Jamaica, the last time I went was what, about 5 years ago. I am called Miss English. I'm not, and they always say that. I think they say that to everyone, Tasha. Oh, you're not from here. Oh, you're not a proper yada. And ironically, when I go to Africa, I've been traveling to West Africa, and they keep saying, "Yeah, you're Jamaican. I'm like, how can you identify me, but my own people cannot?"
People. Mm.
So it's interesting.
It is very. So what signs do you think that show up in like you look for when you see people? Some like for example, what are the signs some people look for if past trauma is affecting them presently? What are the signs should they look for?
Okay, in terms of signs, I'll speak professionally and personally because there are different things that impact people differently. So, in terms of signs, it looks different for different people, like I say. But the
Yes.
most obvious signs, because remember, I work in I don't look for them because the signs manifest themselves very clearly sometimes. For example, I have people who experience insomnia. It might look like flashbacks, disassociation, but it might be subtle, Tasha. It might just be someone has continuous headaches. It might be that they have issues with digestion. It might be that that person starts drinking a bit more, they have some substance misuse issues. They might just be anxious or irritable or just feel a sense of real shame. Because the thing is, Tasha, you and I, all of us, because we're human beings, that's
Right.
the nature of it. We all have different trauma responses. For example, one
Hmm.
of mine is being hyper vigilant to this day. Still, I always check in around my surroundings. Now, I haven't come from a war zone, but you would think I am. People say, why are you so on edge? That is why, because I had to learn to survive. Even now, to this day, I live in comfort, but I eat my food quickly. When I go to a restaurant, I don't really like to share, Tasha, because that's back to Jamaica. If I had to, if there were other kids, especially in that house that I was left in. If you didn't eat your food quickly, they would take your food from
Take
you.
put.
So I was like, no, this is my food. And I didn't want to go to bed hungry. So that is a trauma response that is still evident today. We all do different things. Immunity, for example. This might
Mm,
look like hyper independence. That strong black woman archetype. I'm strong, I'm
yeah.
strong.
Mm,
But I don't subscribe to that, Tasha, because I think it's our experience of intergenerational trauma. And it's
mm,
unfortunately the colonial legacy we have been left with, because
right.
we were beaten into submission. Certainly our ancestors were. And I know people say, oh, that happened back then. But, the whole study of epigenetics says that you can be affected whether it's 4, 5, 6 generations ago, you can
Yeah.
still feel it now. So, as the saying goes, whatever is not transformed gets transferred. So, really,
Mm.
unless we have resolved our past traumas, we need to examine ourselves and to see what it is that affects us. So, yeah.
You touch on some powerful indirectly and people who doesn't even understand that these things that show up in your childhood, like that hyperventilated part of you where you just do things more than your normal, or the word I am tough, I don't need anyone. That's definitely a traumatic experience that a lot of women, not just black, but like mostly black women struggle with that, where they feel like they don't need anybody. I can do it all by myself. I always tell my husband, I am not that type of person. I'm trying to move because when you put yourself in that position, you're telling yourself that you don't need anybody. And that's a lie from the pit of hell, right?
Mhm.
Because you do need somebody. And I always encourage immigrants when they move here, don't get succumbed to the culture that say you need to do everything on your own. There is no way that is possible because if you do everything on your own, you're gonna suffer depression. And you touch on some silent depression, the stuff that immigrants go through, like for example overeating. Overeating is a big thing that people don't realize that is something that is adapt, because in Jamaica we don't eat as much as we do. It's not like it's a poor thing, but we just don't have the time, right? Because we have that heavy meal that keeps us throughout the day, so we don't need that amount of food. But here you're just so stressed, you just continue eating. There's a fast food place every corner, so
Yes.
you pass that fast food place and you just need the food. Even if you're full, you don't even know, but you're eating to fill that gap of either missing someone or all the stress that you're going through or just trying to keep up. So I'm glad that you touch on those things from your professional standpoint, because so that people understand the need that these are the things are not just, oh, they will pass. They won't. They transfer into your kids, they transfer into so many dynamics. And as we wrap up, what would you say to someone who feels stuck emotionally and overwhelmed right now? Both from your professional side and from your experience that you have.
Yeah. And it's what I'm gonna share is what I had to tell myself and still have to remind myself because we have to understand that migration in itself can be traumatic, especially you're in a foreign land. Even if it feels familiar to you, you're not. You know, it's hard to feel like you're not welcome, even if on the outside it feels that way. So I would say, first of all, give yourself permission to just be. Yeah, don't you have to have self compassion for yourself because you are a survivor. We are survivors because it's not everybody has this experience. Like I said, a large number of people, their mental health is affected. All kinds of things are affected because of this journey that we've had to take. So you've had to go through a lot. So just acknowledge how far you've come and just know that you're worthy. And the thing is, if we were all transparent and we told the truth, we would see that no one has it all together. If
No
we
one.
could tell all those shameful stories, all of us will probably say, yeah, that happened to me, you know. That's the
Yeah.
same experience I had. So the main thing I want the listeners to know is that please don't suffer in silence because you were not designed to hold on to these burdens. As I said, the thing if you do, you're going to get burnt out. It can manifest physically, spiritually, and all manner of things. Trauma can be stored in the body. You know, there's a book about that.
Yes.
The body keeps a score.
Mm.
And just in closing, Tasha, I would say it's the kintsugi principle, which is what I talk about in my book. Arise, Kintsugi Queens, you're becoming all you need to be. It's about embracing our imperfections. So, for example, just like say you have a £50 or $50 note, so say you drop it in the toilet or in the mud, yeah? Are you going to leave it there? Because I know I'm not. The money can still spend, isn't it? So
Right.
you would just wipe it off and you go and get your shopping or whatever. So just because that £50 note is crumpled, it's soiled, the same with
Mm.
you. You have always been valuable in spite of your circumstances. So please take that step. If you find that you're struggling to adjust for whatever reason, pick up the phone, email that person, see what your options are. And that's why I love to coach people through transitions in their life, not just migration, whether they're going through menopause, whatever their journey is, because it's hard and you feel like you're on your own. So whatever you do, don't suffer in silence. That's it.
Thank you so much, Maz. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on? We're like, I need to share this with someone who's here listening.
Yeah, no, just get curious. Get curious about what your experience is. I think migration brings up a lot of things. Remember, some people are coming from war-torn environments. But let's not compare our traumas because you don't have to have been in a war to experience some of the things I'm talking about. We're all familiar with loneliness, rejection. You know, we all feel a sense of needing to belong. So
Right.
you find out those safe spaces, friendships, whether it's through faith, going to, to your local place of worship, whatever it is that you need to do, do not keep it to yourself. Yeah. And healing takes time. Of time to fully heal. And I say healing because you might think, well, why we do need to heal. Like I said, because of the legacy that we carry, the colonial legacy. And even if you're a migrant from Eastern Europe and you've come to North America or vice versa, it's still a big adjustment. And we go through identity crisis and all kinds of things. So, take your time and for healing. It takes healing.
I'm gonna show you on the spot. We'll just share like 3 words that somebody would want to hear right now. Um, just 3 solid words. I know I didn't ask you to prepare, but this is like a spontaneous ask. Is like, what are 3 words you could share with someone just to uplift their day?
It gets better. That's what I can think of. It gets better. Where you are now is not where you'll always be. Yeah. And this will be a testimony for you to share with others who are wondering if at the time, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. Oh my gosh, this is really difficult. It gets better.
Nice. Thank you so much. I don't think there's nothing else to add. You have been so amazing. And thank you to just share your story. And I think that's what the bridge conversation with this, because you have shared your story with your professional side. And I think you're amazing professional because then you have the both side. So if someone comes into your office or you have to help someone, you can both share from both your, even though they're not recommending that, but then in your professional side, you can. So thank you so, so, so much for taking this time in your busy schedule and just come on Immigrant Podcast and share with us today. I do appreciate your time and effort and to know that we are both the same We're from the same place, Jamaica, of course, and I love to talk to my own sister, and as we say, our sisters from another country, because then we can share. Sometimes, for some reason, we all sometimes have similar stories. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but something needs to be checked. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening to that wonderful interview. It was such a delight. If you want to hear more inspiring episodes like these, please to follow us on our Instagram at immigrate. We'll be uploading all the videos, all the short clips of it, and you can find me in my email at heslop.tashagay13@gmail.com. That is heslop.tashagay13@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to another great episode of Immigrate.